Good morning, LinkedIn family. It's time for another Coffee with Bob, and today I am so pleased and excited to be speaking with Laura Nutt, one of my favorites. If you've not connected with her, if you've not followed her, if you're not engaging with her, you really need to. She's got some amazing posts. She's always filled with so much inspiration, and she's a true blessing to have as a connection. And I really appreciate it, Laura. And I want to thank you for joining me again.
Thank you so much, Bob. Oh my gosh, holy blushing Batman. Like, good grief. It's quite an introduction. Thank you so much. Yes, I always love coming on. And I got espresso this time. So Bob kept his promise.
Nice.
So super excited. Yeah, so excited to be back.
I'm doing the iced tea today.
Hey, shout out to the iced tea.
There you go. So I have to say that you've got some new equipment there in front of you. You're getting ready for a podcast, huh?
I do. Yeah. Hint, hint, if you can't tell. Yeah, this is my radio. This is my little old time radio mic. It's funny because people see it and they're like, oh my gosh, they give us cool mic. And I'm like, guess what? I have headphones too. So I feel like I have this like deal that nobody knows about. And then I'll go into today on KLT Live, we're going to talk about Dolly Parton. What's on your heart tonight? So we go into that radio mic voice and everything, and people are just like, oh my God. Yes. So I've actually been working on this podcast for quite a few months now. So shout out to my mentor. So Billy Samoa, hey, super cool guy. He's been holding my hand for forever and a day. He's probably ready to like let it go by now. Sing the song. But it's been an amazing journey. Starting it, building a podcast, and you really don't realize how much goes into it. Cause I think a lot of us go, oh my gosh, I'll start a podcast, I'll do this. And when you get into it, it's like, holy crap, like this is a lot of work. So I'm almost to launch phase. So stay tuned. The Nut House is almost launched.
Yeah, it's amazing. People think it's so easy to do. Even this Coffee with Bob has been a big learning process for me. For example, getting a ring light to make sure it's in the backgrounds and the sound and all that stuff. So now I have an intro at the beginning of the Coffee with Bob. That's thanks to my son-in-law. The lighting is thanks to my son-in-law. The background's thanks to my son-in-law. It's nice to have artists in the family. What are some of the things that you have learned that you didn't even realize you had to deal with?
Oh my gosh. So you hit on a huge one right there. So the sound quality is massive, right? And video quality is massive if you're doing a video podcast. So, but definitely sound. You don't think about it when you're not recording for sound quality, but a podcast, if you can't understand what somebody's saying, if there's too much background noise, they're not going to listen to it because they're not going to be able to focus on what you're talking about. So one of the things I had to really think about was hard surfaces, because sound waves do bounce. And so if you have a lot of hard surfaces around you, you have to be mindful. Like I have a tapestry on the desk I sit at. These are actually curtains behind me that are sound buffering, light filtering, all that kind of stuff. I've got cushy chairs in here. There's all kinds of this is a very kid-friendly room. There's a lot of like squishy, gushy kind of stuff, but it's sound absorption because if you don't, you're going to hear echoes, you're going to hear the background noises, you're going to hear all that. So that was a big thing for me. Another thing you talked about too was lighting. I don't have any fancy lighting. It's just, this is my ceiling fan lighting, but I actually had to unscrew one of the bulbs because it literally made me look like illuminated like an alien or something because it was so much light on my face. So I had to fix that because again, in a recording, you have to be able to see the person's face. You have to be able to see their facial expressions and you want it to match and be as realistic as possible. I wanted it to be like I was sitting in the room with that person and people were in the room with us as we were speaking.
Yeah.
And another thing too is really being mindful about your delivery, which is a big thing that we don't think about when we talk. Like being very mindful of the words you use, being very mindful of your body language, your verbal, nonverbal, because you're communicating and we cannot not communicate. And really an on-camera presence was a big thing I had to learn about as well, because it was kind of freaking me out at first. I was like, I don't want to stare at my face all day because I can still see my face as I'm talking. And I had to get past that kind of that fear of, oh my God, my hair looks this way, or look at my funky face, or look at that and just be real and authentic. So really, a podcaster has taught me a lot about just human communication and the importance of being authentic.
That's awesome.
It's really been a powerful lesson. So it's kind of therapeutic in the process as it's stressful want to pull my hair out.
Yeah. Great stuff. I mean, I've been learning some similar things, right? For me, I'm trying to get better at enunciating properly so that you can understand my words. I'm trying not to squint as much as I usually do, because I do that too. And once I start squinting, my eyes tend to get lost, and it gets all dark. And the other thing my son-in-law pointed out to me as well is I got to remember to keep looking straight forward, because when I want to, so for example, right now you're to my left as I'm facing the camera, but if I look at you to my left, when I post this, it's going to look like I'm looking away from you. Like, all those little nuances you got to get used to. You don't even think of when you do this, right? I mean, this is a brave new world for all of us.
It is. Well, and it's so funny that you mentioned that, because people will definitely be able to tell like my first ones, because it'll be looking like I'm looking down at the ground, and then all these funny ones, and I go back and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so it makes me kind of like a little bit like, oh, like I should not put those out there. But then no, I want to put them out there because I want people to I want to show people the growth, the journey of, I was new at this, I started somewhere, and look, I grew throughout the process, so they can grow with me
Right.
as they go through the podcast to see I'm learning, I'm getting better, I'm adjusting. Like, I had to literally raise my computer up. Like, I have 3 yearbooks under my computer. So that way it's eye level with me. I had to put 2 like big notepads, like about that thick, and to raise my microphone up, I've had to play with that. Yeah, there's just, again, there's so much that goes into it. And another thing too is with podcasts is being able to find your guest and being able to find the flow of when you're interviewing your guest, because I had this whole, I'm a recovering perfectionist control freak, so guilty admitting it. I was like, I'm going to have this itinerary. I'm going to have all these questions lined out. It's just, this is the way it's going to be. And no, that's not the way it went at all. It was so much better. Just be organic, be real, just have a conversation. I ask 2 questions when I start my podcast. I say, first, how do you pronounce your name? And then if they have pronouns, I ask about that. And then I say, how would you like to be introduced? And a lot of people are like, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, some people want to be introduced from a personal perspective, and some people want to be introduced from a professional perspective. And so we kind of talk about that. We figure that out. And then I say, what would you like to focus on in this episode? And then they will determine what they feel comfortable talking about, and we'll kind of tease it out really, really quickly. And we'll have conversations beforehand. In fact, so a little bit of secret sauce I'll let you in on. I typically interview my potential guests twice before I actually bring them on the show. And the reason I do that is because I want to make sure we flow, we go back and forth, we're a good fit, and it gives me a good kind of market research on them, on what's important to them, themes that are coming up in their life, their communication patterns, their preferences. And so that way, when I'm speaking to them, I kind of have a familiarity that's already there, and it's much more natural, and it comes across, as opposed to just a cold, okay, I've met you, here, be on my show, I've never talked to you before, and then boom, let's go. Because that's going to come across to the listeners. Let's be honest, people's BS detectors are pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are things just to be mindful of, is just be organic, be real, be authentic, and people will love what you have to say.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I try to do on the Coffee with Bob's too. I want it to be a natural conversation, be very organic, and I'm learning just as the audience that is watching or listening is learning too. I think that works
totally
best. Laura, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We are definitely going to do a Coffee Talk with Bob live so that we can premiere your first podcast when it becomes available and talk about the way you've built it up so far. Your journey is amazing. And again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. I enjoyed this espresso. I'm ready to take on the day now.
All right. We will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.